All right, all right, all right. That's not even my line, but I love it. Hey, everybody, it's Forbes Riley, and welcome to the Forbes Factor. I love doing this show. I love meeting new people, getting into great conversations. We focus on health, wealth, and happiness, and anything that just crosses my mind. So today, I have a couple of very special guests, and I'm going to start by saying you should follow your passion. You know, they say if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. Well, when I first started out my career, I was lucky enough to work only as an actress. Started in my very first feature film right out of college. I'm sure you've all seen it. It's Splatter University. Now, I know, don't laugh. Okay, I'm going to actually show you guys something crazy because that was over 30 years ago. Just yesterday, somebody wrote a book about my movie. If you're watching this on video, guys got to go to YouTube because if you're listening to it, you can't see this. But this is the novel of the book. There I am starring in the film. Didn't win an Oscar, didn't win an Emmy, did win a Gory. That's for the most, anyway. But I got to tell you, it's my favorite thing to do in life. And October of 2024 coming up, I am co-starring in another movie. I've done lots in my life, but an action-packed Western. I don't get to do it enough. I took a long break from stage. I used to love doing theater and Broadway. And oh, my heart is being an actor, is studying the craft, is hanging out with other actors, is getting to play in plays. And I've always said, you know, it's funny because the coolest days are when they're like, Miss Riley, can I get you coffee? You get to stand here. Here's your costume. Here's your makeup. All you do is get to emote, have fun, hang out with very wonderful people, and then go to a premiere. You know, I traded that in so I could actually inspire people. And now I coach and teach. And you guys know we're sponsored by my coaching programs. If you want to know how to pitch, you're talking to the queen, which is interesting because in the business, you've got to pitch yourself, scripts, ideas, all kind of things. And I also talk about at great length how being an actress destroyed my heart because you are also rejected all of the time and you put yourself out there to be rejected. For those of you who have a regular job, imagine going on a job interview, not one, but two, maybe three times a day and having most of them tell you they don't want you. It's overwhelming. Well, my guest I first saw on the silver screen and I wasn't ready for it. I didn't know what to expect. The opening scene is the amazing Joe Theismann as a quarterback getting sacked by Lawrence Taylor. Well, Joe is my personal mentor and a dear friend of mine. I'd never seen that. And I was like stunned. And I went to see a Sandra Bullock movie. I had no idea what it was about, except literally it's called Blindside. And it touched my heart. And we're going to find out why it became a very personal, life-changing analogy. And we're going to start to cry. When I met the lead actor, oh my God, I just fell in love. He is just a big old wonderful teddy bear. I loved him in the film and I certainly love him as a human being. I'm going to cry. Quinton, come on up here. Oh my goodness.
Hello.
How are you, my baby?
I'm good. I'm good. Don't cry. I'm sending you a hug.
You know, it's hard. It's hard because when I can't believe this is happening. Oh my God. When I look at you, this beautiful, robust, amazing man, I see a little boy that I raised who looked just like you, big old burly kid for 12 years of his life. And my little boy was murdered. And
Oh, I'm so sorry.
he didn't have the story that you have. I took him under my wing. I fought for him. I was an advocate along with my ex-husband. We got him from the Big Brother, Little Brother program, his best man at my wedding. And there were so many wonderful memories. And I remember looking at you and putting the movie together because when I watched it, I couldn't contain myself. And then you popped into my life in an event not long ago, and you are
Yes.
just even more wonderful in person.
Well, thank you. Thank
So,
you.
so let's talk a little bit. Did you always want to be an actor?
I did. I did. Even before I knew what acting was, I was always quite the character, even at home, driving my mom crazy, pretending to be people I watched on TV. And she signed me up for drama in school. And that's when I figured out what acting was because I had no idea.
Well, and so you did that in high school, college,
I did it,
yes?
yeah, elementary, middle school, high school, all the way through. And then I started pursuing so the first thing I did after I graduated high school was audition for American Idol. But that didn't kind of go in my way. So, yeah, theater was just like, I'm gonna do this too. I love acting. So
All right. Well, that's kind of ambitious. Now, where'd you grow up?
The Bronx, New York. Born and raised. For the first 12 years of my life, I was there. Then we moved down to Augusta, Georgia, where I did middle school and high school. After graduation, I moved back to New York to pursue the business.
So you were working in New York. That was where I started as well. Worked on Broadway, did a couple soap operas, went through crazy rejection, as I mentioned earlier. What was your first
Yeah.
major role or
Uh,
minor?
so first minor role. So you ever seen a movie called Be Kind Rewind? Jack Black, Most Def,
Yeah, absolutely.
Danny Glover. So
Uh-huh.
I got casted to play like one of the background roles, one scene, one role, that kind of thing.
Right.
And I came in the video store with the gang, and then we shot that scene. Then it was like, okay, cool, cut lunch. Went to lunch, and then the director and Jack Black and Mos Def and Danny Glover pulled their chairs up around me, and they offered me a part to be in the movie throughout the duration of filming, which was like a month. So I got
Now wait a second. That only happens in the movie.
exactly,
Come on. What do you
exactly.
think it was?
I don't know what it was, but that was my first movie set. Uh, First scene ever in a movie, and I got upgraded right after that scene to being a character in the movie. Got lines, became SAG eligible, and I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do.
That is
So it
amazing.
was
Wow. I don't think I hear that story very often. And so did you get representation shortly after that?
my mom was my first representation. She was my momager, as I like to call her.
All right.
Um, she was submitting me for everything. I did one-liners here and there. I did some background roles on Law and Order. I did some student films to kind of like get my feet wet and get that set experience. And so I did some stuff with NYU and Columbia. Um, and then and then one day the Blindside popped up and she submitted me for it. And
And take
it
us
was
through
funny.
that. Take us through that process. What was that like?
It was cool because so my mom was a writer and she wrote a book that she got published before she passed, but she was always writing stuff. And so she wakes me up like three something in the morning one night and she goes, Quentin, read this. And I couldn't see the screen. So she read it to me and then she goes, who does that sound like? I said, me. And she said, okay, go back to bed. And I thought she was writing something about me. And
Oh,
turns out that was the breakdown for the character that they were looking for in the Blind Side. But that's how much it sounded just like me.
right.
So she wrote the casting directors, Twinkie Bird. Um, she wrote her a nice little letter telling her who I was and how I'd be perfect for the role. They called her first thing in the morning. It must have been like when they got in the office, called her because the office opened up like 10 o'clock. At 10:05, I had a email and a call from my mom telling me that I need to study the sides for an
So,
audition.
so here's what's so unusual and like slightly annoying about this. I look at you and you are not, see, okay, let me just use me first. I got the Forbes, you're not big breasted and blonde hair. You don't fit into the typical norm of what we're looking for. And I mean, or at 34, you were too old for entertainment tonight. I mean, crazy. It's just, it was constant. I
Yeah,
look at you, not a lot of roles for people who look like you either, but you seem to have
exactly.
this like beautiful, innocent, I'm going to do it anyway attitude. I wish we'd met 20 years ago.
I know. Oh man, it's I grew up in the church and my faith played a big part in everything in my life, who I am today, who I was back in the day. And I was always taught by my mom that you can do everything you believe you can. So if you believe in your abilities to succeed, you're gonna, and I took that to heart because if I knew how to do something, there was nobody on the planet that was going to tell me I couldn't do it. That
That's,
was my mindset.
are you an only child?
No, I have a younger brother, and a couple of years ago, I found my father like a month and some change before he passed away, and found that I got a dozen siblings on his side of the family. So I'm one of 13.
Oh, wow. That's an interesting way to expand that. So, for those of you who
Exactly.
may or may not have seen Blindside, it is a movie that's starring the one and only Sandra Bullock, who I fantasize about being. Her career definitely, it was something I aspired to. as an actress. And so you do screen test with her. How does that go down?
So no, actually, we didn't screen test. I believe they booked me before they got her. Um,
Wow.
yeah, they were looking for my character. So Michael, they was like, well, this movie doesn't work without Michael Orr, so we have to find whoever that's gonna be, and then we'll get everyone else. And I think, or it was either they booked me right before they got her, or they already knew they wanted me, and then they went after her to try and lock it down because before the movie actually came into exist or started working with Alcon, it was with 20th Century Fox Searchlight, I believe.
Uh-huh.
And at the time, it got shelved because this was during the '07 writer strike. But then there was a lot of things in the play. I think they were originally going after Julia Roberts, who
Mm.
turned it down. And yeah,
Oops.
she didn't want to do the film, and so they kind of just shelved it for the duration of the year. Once that was up, Gil Netter, who was the original producer, he went and got it and took it over to Alcon, who had distribution of Warner Brothers, and they immediately started approaching Sandra. And Sandra said no for the first two times.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, I think it was very intimidating for her. And then, the director said, hey, here's Leanne, go to Oxford, shadow her for the weekend. And, come Monday, if you still say no, then I'll leave you alone. And so she went and did that, stayed
Oh,
with the
shoot, sorry.
family. Oh, that's right.
I could have
And
sworn I turned that off. That's your agent. Wait, you've got another role.
I know, right? I can't even imagine. Like, but yeah, so she went in, you know, shadowed her, drove her crazy for a weekend, and come Monday, she called John and was like, "Okay, I get it, I'll do it."
Oh,
And so
wow.
that's
What a
how.
beautiful story. Now, what's your mom experiencing during this time?
Oh, unfortunately, she passed a few months um, before
Oh,
we actually got the actually got the part. So she didn't get to see any of it. Well, from here, I know I feel like she's seen it up there, but yeah, she wasn't here for that whole process, and she was dealing with a lot, her health issues. She was sick for a long time, and um, yeah, it got to the point it was too much. But
I'm
one of
sorry.
the things, no, that's all right. I throughout that period, I felt like this was the opportunity that she had worked hard to get me. So
Yeah.
I had to take full advantage of it. So I kind of kept that grief to myself. I had to compartmentalize and, put it aside to do the film. And that was the only way I knew how to get through without, I don't know, falling apart or whatever. But like,
No, it's pretty admirable. I got to tell you, that's a lot on your shoulders, but I'm sure it led to the depth of maybe what we saw on screen. How did you work with the
yeah,
coach, or how did you? This is a major studio picture. How did you prepare for this?
you know what? I wanted to make sure I was off book. So I read the script like a bunch of times. I literally knew all of my lines in the film and everyone else's because I read the script so many times. And I don't know. I was a lot of it. I was basically going off the direction of the director
Mm-hmm.
and feeding off my cast. And Sandra actually helped me out a lot because I was very nervous in the beginning, and I don't know. It just kind of felt like yeah, the big stage jitters kind of
Yeah.
got
Oh,
to me
I
because I'm
trust me.
like,
I
oh,
get it. I've been there.
the first time she shows up on set and we're in a scene together, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what do I do? Like I remember my lines, but I don't remember my lines. Wait, do I? It was just like nerves, and she pulled me aside and she yeah, gave me some sound advice, and then she was just so cool to work with,
What
like
kind of
so
advice? Give
fun.
us a little insight. What'd she say?
Well, one of the first things I remember her telling me is that the cameras aren't there. And she's like, even though you can see them, they're not there. So she's like, your job is not to worry about who's filming you, who's watching you, unless it's the person that you're talking to on camera. If
Right.
you can get that in your mind that no one's there, no one's watching, you'll do your job. So we're just having a conversation. There's nobody around watching us. And those were some of the things she was saying to me. And it started to resonate. And I took it literal to where there was really, I remember some moments where the camera was there, but I didn't notice. That's how much I zoned it out. And I cool thing I like to talk about. So Harrison Ford, one of my favorite actors of all time, he taps me on the shoulder. This is 2010, and we're like on the way to the I think the after party for the Golden Globes. And at the top, I turn around, it's Harrison Ford. I'm like, oh my God. Oh, wait, what? Did Indiana Jones? And I'm just freaking out. And he's like, he gave me the coolest compliment. He's like, your movie brought me to tears. And he said, there's one particular scene that I love. And he said, most actors wait their entire career for a scene like this. And some never get it. Some do, but mess it up. And you were flawless. And I said,
Ooh.
I was like, which scene was this? Like, I want to know. Like,
Yeah, hello.
so he's like, there's a scene where I'm sitting on the bench and the principal is talking to me and he's telling me about my father. And he said, and the camera's like zooming in like real close. And I just have this look on my face. And he said, I didn't say anything, but I said so much at the same time. And he said, you had such little space to work with and you nailed it. He said, most actors would
Oh,
overact or do something that shakes out of focus. And he said, you were completely flawless. And I as an actor, I didn't notice that about that scene. Like, it tells you how much I need to learn. I was green at the time, but when I was so like moved by his like perception of my performance in that role and just the compliment from him, and it was amazing. That was like one of my most memorable moments with one of my celebrity
crushes.
like
We can call it a man crush. Yeah.
that's my man crush. Yeah, my
There you go.
celebrity
I
man
could
crush.
totally
And
got that. So
you
this
know what
is,
I mean?
it's interesting. How has the career gone for you? Because there's something fascinating about jumping off the cliff and flying the first time. Not always successful as you continue for a lot of reasons. But one, you got your head on straight. Two, I was just, be curious. How did it go?
So for the career or like
Yeah, the
after that
career.
project,
Yeah.
yeah, there was a lot of ups and downs. I call it a roller coaster over the years. Um, dealing with the politics of the industry, living life in LA. I would say there was a period in my life where things got slow, and when it slowed down for me, the grief got loud again. And so
Yep.
I went through this like period of depression where um I don't know, things became a little too real. Uh People who I thought were friends disappeared. Um, a couple heartbreaks, and then, boom, I'm a depressive eater. So my weight kind of like skyrocketed through the roof. I was eating my life away, and I blew up to almost 600 pounds. And
Wow.
yeah, it was crazy. I didn't know how to handle it. It was just I mean, at the same time, I was kind of happy that my vices weren't alcohol and drugs and stuff like that. But at the same time, I was like, yeah, I need to make a change.
Hey, you know what? I ended up in Overeaters Anonymous for a long time because that was my drug of choice as well, and I'm writing about that now. Since
No,
I've
wow.
seen since I've seen you, I had some traumatic stuff happen. I was in a really bad tour bus accident where my face went through the glass onto the street in Iceland,
Oh
and
no.
yeah, I know. But I walked away from it pretty unscathed, and I'm going to share with you that it was kind of crazy. Luckily, I had my husband Joshua with me. My daughter was in the back of this tour bus. She also went through the glass and we all walked away. I tore my shoulder, but I didn't tear my face. And literally, and you're thinking to find this fascinating as an overeater who was crucified by Hollywood for my weight on so many levels. Because as a lead
Mm,
actress, if you're not 15 pounds underweight, you're not hireable. And it
yeah.
was very challenging for me. And I decided to enter a bodybuilding fitness bikini competition since I've last seen you. I lost 25
What?
pounds, 12% body fat, I don't even own a bikini. And now I do, and I have a medal for my efforts. And it's like, what
Nice.
just happened to me? And I'm writing a little book about it called Flip the Switch. So you got,
Exactly.
right? Because you got to 600 pounds. Did something go, wait a second, I'm changing all of this?
Yeah. So I mean, it was around COVID, I would say
Okay.
2020, the pandemic, rude awakening. So a few months before COVID, I got diagnosed with congestive heart failure, which is the same disease my mom had, which actually claimed her. So that was a scary moment for me. And then COVID came around a few months later and knocked me on my behind a couple of times. I was in and out the hospital, couldn't breathe. Things were just getting scary. I was hurting everywhere. Faced all the symptoms everyone else faced, but then was able to walk away from it. And um, I think it was a year later when it really dawned on me because I also got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And so now I'm like, okay, heart failure, diabetes. And at this time um I was feeling so bad like physically that I couldn't really I didn't know what was wrong fully, but I remember everything about my mom towards the end. And I wanted to say I felt like she felt because I was her home care attendant. Like I took care of her at night um towards the end. She needed 24-hour care and she didn't want nurses or people in our house at night. So I was her nighttime home attendant. And I remember how her legs looked from the varicose veins. I remember, not being able to walk from one room to the next. And there was a point in my life where I was like that. I felt like that. I was in so much pain. My legs were so big and had petting edema from the swelling and the fluids and all that. Um, but it was like after the diabetes scare, uh, where I ended up in ICU and they told me I was in diabetic ketoacidosis, which is when your body starts attacking itself. Like the blood in your body becomes acidic and it starts attacking the organ um, for survival. So I literally was at a crucial point in my life where I could have ended up in a coma or gone, but I felt like I was still here for a reason. And I just made a switch. Like I told God I was ready. And it's like the moment I did, things started changing. So my mindset got different. I started doing intermittent fasting. For some reason, I lost all the taste for sugar. Everything that was sweet, I didn't like it. It tastes nasty to me. So I quit eating sugar, quit drinking sugar, cut that out. And I started
Dude,
listening to
you
my
just
body.
qualified to be in my book because it sounds like you flipped a switch,
I
right?
did flip a switch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was literally, and in 6 months' time, the craziest part was I didn't step foot in the gym. But in 6 months' time, with the changes that I made in my life, I went from 575 pounds down to 400 from November to, I think it was
I got a
November to May.
bikini. I got a bikini you could try on if you want. Come on.
You know what? I might look good in a bikini. I'm just saying. No, I'm just
It is. But I got, wow. Now, where are you now, weight wise?
so wait, I'm now around what was it, 441 earlier this morning. Um, so I went down to 400, but this was like 2 years ago. And
Yeah.
around then, I still had some ups and downs because when I was at 400, um, I think what it was the doctors introduced me to insulin. So I started taking that to help with the blood sugar. But what I didn't know about insulin is it causes you to gain weight.
Yeah.
So my weight went back up to around 480 ish, but I was determined not to get back in the fives. I was like, this is not happening. I'm like, I'm not eating bad. What's going on? Like, why is my weight going up? And so, just trying different medications,
Now, you talked about
trying
the
to,
gym, not going. I don't know if you haven't met him, but I'm married to a bodybuilder. Um,
I saw him actually in North Carolina.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yes, yes, you did.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
is, that's right. He was at the house with us. He is a professional. It's what he does. And I will tell you, inspired me to get to the gym and do his program, which is very interesting because I did it with a torn shoulder. But I got to tell you, that might be a very interesting, it changed my body. Putting muscle on this body made everything completely different. Just FYI.
Absolutely.
And I'm happy to have that conversation with you. Do you have a good support system?
I do actually. My beautiful wife, she's 4'11" and 3/4. I can't leave out the three
Wait,
quarters.
but how tall are you?
6'8".
You have a 4'11" wife. Do you put her in your pocket?
I know, right? She's Puerto Rican, so she's like sassy and she runs the show, you know. So she cooks for me and keeps me in check and all of that. She's also a nurse, so she makes sure that I'm on my meds and everything and
I love that. We're
staying
gonna run out of time.
staying happy.
I want to see a beautiful picture of this spunky lady who's tamed you. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, and share with me what's going on now. What's up? What's next?
Man, there's so many things. I just turned 40 a couple weeks ago, so I'm excited to be in the 40 club and um, waiting for this next chapter in my life. I have a couple big projects on the way. I may be, fingers crossed, starring in my first action role next year. So, and it's overseas, so I'm excited about that. And wish I could tell more, but I
No,
can't yet.
you know what? I
But
got it.
yeah, yeah. And a few other big announcements to come. I, I, I
Well, you know what? Here's the
what's
deal. No.
yeah,
Hang on. We'll invite you back because now all my fans are like, wait, I want to know more about this man. I want to know what's going on. In fact, I need to post a
absolutely.
cute little photo of the two of us. What advice would you give to an actor, to a budding performer?
So I would definitely say go with your heart. If acting is what you want to do, ask yourself this question my mom asked me a long time ago. She said, if there was one thing that you woke up tomorrow and you couldn't do anymore and it would absolutely devastate you, what is that one thing? And if it's acting, that's what you're meant to be. Once you know that that's what you're meant to be and you just don't want to do it because everyone else around you is doing it, go after it. Work hard, welcome the no's because you're going to hear a lot of them,
Yep.
but don't let it stop you. Let it motivate you to keep pushing because for every 10 million no's, there's that one yes that's going to make all of those other no's go away.
Wait, there's 10
And
million no's? I was working on 100.
I mean, sometimes it seems like it's 10 million, it's
Right?
like, goodness, it's like, no, 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 no. But I've learned to think about it like this. Not every no is a bad thing because I feel like God's in our corner and he's watching out for us and he's in the rooms before we get there. So he hears the conversations that we don't and he sees the things that we don't. And he's stopping us from walking into setups that we can't see. So I feel like we should welcome the no's because you never know what's around the other corner. Um, you know, I've learned to look at the brighter side in everything because for every bad situation, there's an enlightened one right there that if we can look past the emotions, we can find. And that's the way I tend to go through life.
How'd you meet your beautiful wife?
Well, it was a TikTok romance. We actually met on TikTok about a year and a
No, well,
half
you
ago.
can't even swipe on TikTok.
I know, right? So what had happened was I was doing lives and I was singing to the crowd and she was commenting in my live and so I looked at her picture. I'm like, oh, she looked good. So when I got off, I actually slid in her DMs and we started talking. And yeah, the rest is history.
I think that is just spectacular. Well, you know what? I was a fan for I didn't even know that who you were. I just thought this energy, and now I know why Danny Glover and those guys literally just found you. You got a smile and a thing about you that is
Thank you.
unlike COVID, but still infectious. Can I say that without sounding
Thank you.
weird?
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
If you had one hope for the world, what might it be, my friend?
Um, so I wrote a song that I released last year called Lead with Love. And it's my I would say mantra, but it's how I go about life. I like to do everything out of love. And if I had a hope for the world, it would be that we lead with love. There's far too much hate in this world and we need a lot more love. injected into it. So as America's teddy bear, I'm making it my,
Oh, I love that
duty.
moniker. I'm the queen of pitch. You're the America's teddy bear. I will tell you, I got
Yes.
downloaded a song through my journey, and I have all the lyrics. I'm not quite sure what to do with it. It's called "The Wait Is Over." WEIGHT.
Nice. Nice.
It's powerful, and I'm going to say it might really totally speak to you. So if I go on a little bass there.
There you
I
go.
just, I think that you're absolutely spectacular. It's funny.
Thank
My
you.
next guest, we're going to have a little conversation with him. He has a company. He made the first 3-layer cookie. It's called
Oh,
Dirty
wow.
Dough. I can't even look at it because
Oh,
it's
Lordy.
it's like, I just want to crawl into it and hang out there for a while.
That sounds like diabetes in a cake, in a
You know,
pastry.
but every once in
Yeah.
a while, you're allowed to have that indulgence. I don't think you can do it every
hmm
day. Bennett, are you
Oh,
there? Do you
yeah.
want to come up and say hi real quick before I switch over?
Yes, I am. How's it going, guys?
All right, I need you to say hi to
Hey.
Quinton. You may recognize Quinton as one of the stars of Blindside. Did you see the movie? With
Yes, I
Sandra
did.
Bullock?
Hey,
Yeah.
Quinton, nice to meet you.
What's going on? Nice to meet you.
It's funny. He was
Yeah.
just in, I think you guys almost met. He was at the house in Utah. He was at Dave
Oh, okay.
Austin's house.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I was there the night before everything kicked off. They had like a dinner from like 6 to 9 or something. And I was there for that dinner, but then I had to leave the next morning for LA.
Okay.
So-
Is that where you're based out of?
No. I live in Utah, actually. I was just going to do a movie.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Why did what's funny? I didn't ask you. I didn't realize you lived in Utah because Josh and I are thinking about moving. I shouldn't ask what town. I'll privately ask you what town. Are people stalking you at the grocery store? I know where he lives.
I know. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's pretty cool out here because it's so big, but everything is still close by and there's so much to do. So
And the mountains. The mountains.
Oh my God, it's so majestic. They're right behind me. I don't know if you can see them.
Yep, it's you don't get that view anywhere else. And also the people are so nice because Bennett, we've been just yakking about being actors in Los Angeles, and I spent 24 years there, and all the trauma just kind of beat me up. So I'm glad I'm not there at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's also good. Quinton, I'm in Pleasant Grove. So
Oh, okay.
Utah, yeah.
It's like my Utah connections here, you
Yeah.
guys. But I have
There we go.
I have to kick Quinton off because he's now gotten down from 600 pounds to about 400. And I said there's something about a cookie and dirty dough, and I'm like, you know what? We're just not going to listen to that right now. Maybe on his birthday, we'll come and deliver him one. We'll smush it all over his face.
There we go.
But next time I'm in Utah, I will stop by and say hi. I want to give you the biggest hug. Guys, say bye to America's teddy bear, Quinton.
Absolutely.
Biggest hug.
Thank you.
Such a job.
Thank you.
I will talk to you soon, my friend. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Wow. What a great, he's been a friend for a while, and it's kind of ironic. I didn't really think about that. He's been fighting diabetes and eating, and I was like,
I heard that. Yeah.
Bennett.
I've lost about 110 pounds since I've owned Dirty Dough. So
All right, we got to talk about
Control.
this. All right, so you guys, by way of introduction, also part of my Utah amazing connection. On the other side of the spectrum, this man is incredibly sweet, slightly chocolatey, and a little bit nutty sometimes. No, that's just the product he makes. He is the CEO, and I cannot wait to ask him how, why, when, and where of Dirty Dough, how all this came about. So please welcome to the stage, Bennett Maxwell. How are you?
I'm doing it amazing. Thank you for that intro. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. All right, what did you do before the cookie company?
I did, growing up in Utah, served a 2-year LDS or Mormon mission, learned how to knock doors, came back and I did door-to-door sales for quite a while, which led me to a solar company. Started a solar company with my brother, residential solar based out of San Diego. And then I invested in a Dirty Dough to get it from an apartment. So somebody else had started it that I went to high school with, and he started out of his apartment. I gave him some money to build the first storefront. He opened that up, and then he wanted to sell everything. So with no experience in food or cookies or nothing, I rolled the dice. I bought it from about 3 years ago, and then franchised it. And now I'm just trying to breathe, keep my head above the water.
Well, first of all, for those of you who don't know, I've been spending a lot of time in Utah, and I will say that the best salespeople have come out of the idea that you've got to do a 2-year mission and knock on doors as part of the Mormon church. It's amazing. And some of you guys have exploded this concept. I may have to send everybody on a 2-year door knocking mission because my salespeople just don't understand what it takes. What's one of the biggest lessons you learned during that time?
Um, Probably like it was getting along with people. So they send you out. I went to Tijuana, Mexico. I didn't speak any Spanish. They throw you in a city. They give you all the intro and like rules in Spanish, and then they throw you with a companion that's usually a native Spanish speaker that doesn't speak English. Um, and there's a lot of cultural clashing. You're also, on a mission. You're doing all this religious stuff. And every 6 to 12 weeks, you're switching companions. So I think that was the biggest thing. Like after a few companions, I realized like, okay, it's a choice if I'm going to get along with them.
Mhm.
And I mean, there's 1,000 takeaways, but the biggest takeaway is probably I could choose to get along with anybody. And that honestly has made my relationship with my wife way better because it's not like, oh, is there a soulmate or this or that? It's no, you just got to learn to get along with people that you're
Ooh, I
living
like
with.
that.
So I'm like, yeah, if I can live with a guy from Ecuador that doesn't speak any English and I can get along with him after 3 months and, he's a dude and I'm a dude, I could definitely get along with my wife.
But now, how about in terms of knocking on doors, getting rejected, and selling anyway? The perseverance to do that, it's fascinating because most salespeople give up. They just
Yeah.
can't handle the rejection and the no's. You guys are designed to get no's. You know you're going to get no's, a lot of them, and it like seems
Yes.
to be okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very like you go out for 2 years and if you come home early, there's a lot of shame and guilt associated, which I don't agree with, but it's there. And as a, 19-year-old, you're like, oh, I don't want to be that guy. So it's like you have to finish the mission no matter what it takes. And to finish it's yeah, go talk to 10,000 people, go talk to 20,000 people. In Tijuana, though, right when I got there, it is typically door knocking, but it was dangerous in Mexico at the time, and they made the rule no more door knocking. So it was you could contact people in the street, or you can work with already members of the church to get referrals. And I think that was widely beneficial because with dirty dough, like people are like, what do you do with dirty dough? And my focus is raising capital. And then how have you done that? I no idea. I ask everybody for referrals. You get on a call with one person, pitch them the business. If it's a fit or if it's not, it's always kind of just a smooth transition to the referral, and everybody connects you. And through that, I had no experience capital raising, but in the last 3 or so years, I think we've raised 8 or 9 million. Just really asking for referrals.
And you didn't know anything about franchising, I'm sure, and now you are doing it, right?
And now I'm doing it. Yep, I'm trying
How
to
hard
do
was
it.
that to comprehend and put into action being a guy who owns a concept for a franchise?
Pretty hard, but right at the beginning, I brought on a good advisor, group of advisors. One of them owns the largest property management franchisor in the nation. Then we brought on the former CEO of Jimmy John's as an advisor. And I know my intro is CEO, but right at the beginning, I hired a CEO, Jill Summer Hayes, who was the founder of Maui Wowie Smoothies and Coffee. Ran
Oh,
that
wow.
for 40 years. They got up to 600 something locations. So it was okay. It's a whole nother language, it's a whole nother world, franchising. And then food is another thing. Do I have the time to learn it all? Do I want to spend that? Or do I want to go recruit the talent of people who've kind of been there, done that? And I think we did a pretty good job with that, which is, I think we opened our first store 2 years ago, and now we have, over 80 franchises open.
I just find it amazing. So let's go back to the idea you decided to invest in your friend who had this silly idea. I mean, I got to tell you, between Chips Ahoy and Crumble, I would think cookies are already done, right?
Yes.
He comes along and says, what was the difference that he really decided he wanted to make in the world?
So this was in 2018, like just a year after Crumble came about. So Crumble was even in Arizona, and this was in Arizona. So you wanted to be the first gourmet cookie company in Arizona. When I purchased it from them, I was visiting the store and a customer asked an employee, hey, what's Dirty Dough? Like, why'd you name it Dirty Dough? And the truth is, it just sounded good, like sounds cool. But the employee said, it's because the dough is dirty because we have more mix-ins. And I'm like, oh, I like that. Crumble is all about, typically a normal cookie with a lot of frostings and on the exterior. So we went the opposite, and that's how we got the 3-layer cookie. I'm like, I want it, and I also wanted it to be a little bit more than just cookies. So the mission statement of Dirty Dough is all about finding joy and fulfillment despite life's dirtiness. And the cookies are supposed to represent that. It's a messy, imperfect cookie on the outside, and it, maybe looks like a peanut butter cookie with some chocolate drizzle. But when you break it open, there's a chocolate dough in the middle with a hot fudge injection. And I'm trying to draw that correlation with life, and hey, life doesn't have to look perfect for it to be enjoyed. So
I
that's
would
kind
do
of
really
the
well with a hot fudge injection.
me too. Me too.
So, it's so funny. You took this over. Was it already going like the machines to make? Because the whole concept. Every time somebody does something completely unique, there's a
Mhm.
massive learning curve.
Yeah. No, when I took it over, it was a single store. Everything was made in-house, no machines by hand. And then I was looking at Mrs. Fields and Great American Cookie Company. Both of them have almost been around for half a century,
Right.
47 or 48 years. What do? They centralize their production so you get economies of scale. You machine portion everything so you get greater quality control. You ship it out to the franchises for them to be baked fresh. They're still being baked fresh every hour. So you don't lose the freshness, but you get the unit
Consistency.
economics, less labor, consistency, all of that. So Dirty Dough is really a company that's married the two models of let's do the back end production of these companies that have proven that they could be around for almost 50 years. But Crumble, they came in and really opened up the industry even wider with a gourmet cookie. So consumer facing, we're competing with Crumble. Back end facing, we're competing with these, the industry, the old school people, Mrs. Fields and Great American Cookie. So that's what Dirty Dough is, and we're trying to take the best of both worlds, and so far it seems like it's working.
I think it's an absolutely fascinating concept. I unfortunately or fortunately, and it's sort of funny. I don't know how I feel about it because I recently went on a health. I've been overweight or fought my weight as an actress my entire life. It was the bane of my existence,
Uh-huh.
and fell in love with a bodybuilder. And 4 months ago, I was in a horrible accident, and out of that, decided to enter bodybuilding competition. So I went zero carb, zero, and I'm like looking at your advertising and your stuff, and I'm like drooling out of one side of my mouth because it looks really, really good. What do you say to people who are in the age of Ozempic and fighting their weight and diabetes, or does it not enter into the conversation?
Oh, for sure. But it's just it's portion control. We don't need people to buy cookies every day. If you have 1% of America buy one cookie every other month, the business thrives. And
Okay.
again, I own the business, and I eat cookies all the time. But I mean, these are like a third of a pound. I cut it into sixth, and I grab one, I take a bite, and I taste it, and I savor it, and I try to be as present as possible, and then I'm done. So it's like I could still try multiple cookies. But I don't need a 600-calorie cookie. I need a bite of 50 calories and I'm good.
Well, actually, that's a very healthy. I'm really glad that you said that. You also just went on a weight loss journey yourself. What's that about?
Yes. I sold there was a little overlap when I bought Dirty Dough when it was the single location and I was still running the solar company. I was 28, so it's 3 years ago. And I wanted, all problems in life would be solved if you're a millionaire, right? That's what you say. So I had an exit of the solar company. I was 310 pounds, not in a great relationship with my wife, just working way too much. It was all work. And I told myself, well, if I could achieve this, $1 million net worth, then I'll finally let my foot off the gas. And sold the solar company. It was great, felt great for a few days, few weeks, whatever. And then I just returned to my normal base levels of happiness, which is I'm going to do everything again till I hit my next goal. So at that time, I'm like, no, I need to make changes. And I wanted to make sure that those changes started with my health because I need to be around with my kids. So it was, okay, I'm going to stop this. I'm trying to get out of the rat race of just next goal, next goal, next goal, next goal, and getting my priorities straight, which is health and family. And oddly enough, the more I focus on health and family and the more I step away from the business, it seems like the better it goes. Kind of weird.
No, it's not kind of weird. I wish you would kind of teach that course on how to let go because I hold too tight to my companies. And that's probably my biggest downfall is I'm still that little bit of a control noodle freak.
I relate. I relate.
What's one of the biggest lessons that you learned by being in this business?
Oh, wow. There's so many lessons. I'm going to kind of revert back to the first one. I think the biggest lesson is making sure you have people that have been there, done that. I mean, you just don't know what you don't know. And especially on the legal side, I think I got really lucky there on getting a really good advisor that has grown several companies to multiple $1 billion. And he was our senior advisor. And just taking his advice on everything. Like I started Dirty Dough. I had 5 partners and myself, and we didn't set up any vesting. It was kind of all over the place. He came, cleaned it all up. We set up metrics on how to measure if somebody's, completing their vesting schedule or not. And none of the other 5 partners cut it. So I was able to buy back all the equity for what they paid back. And I think that's what saved the business. But again, just getting advice from good people.
I want to ask, and you can feel free to say this in any way that you want, but a lot of people who will listen to this show are entrepreneurs who we all, and I own a couple of companies, don't know what we don't know. When you bring on a senior advisor for a company, what do they expect? Do you have to pay them out a lot of money? Do you give them equity? What is generally an arrangement that makes sense?
So what I was taught, and this guy's name is John Richards. He gives a startup boot camp every 3 months here in Utah, called Startup Ignition. This was after I sold my solar company. I started a company, sold it within 18 months, had a good exit, like super, thinking I know it all. And then I go take this guy's course and I realized I don't know freaking anything. I was a small business owner in the weeds every day, and he teaches scalable business. So part of that is, hey, go get top tier advisors, not a board of directors or board of advisors, but a board of advisors. So they just give advice. They don't actually have decision-making control. And I said, okay, how do you get them? He goes, you offer them 0.5% to 1.5% of equity over a 2-year vesting period. So if I were to ask you, Forbes, to be my advisor, I'd say, hey, here's a percent of equity. My expectation for you is to be available roughly for an hour a week, and that's kind of it. Just give me advice. After 6 months of that percent equity that was allocated to you, a quarter of it is locked in. After a year, half of it's locked in up until the full percentage is locked in. And so that protects the company. If you bring on an advisor that isn't really active or isn't responding, you could replace them and use that equity for someone else. But that blew my mind. I think Dirty Dough did $460,000 that year. We weren't a franchise. We were losing money because I was already hiring a corporate team. And I'm like, how do I get top tier advisors for a company that is losing money and doesn't really exist? And I think that came back to the sales skills, and the pitching the vision. But I was able to get John. I think we gave him 1.5% of equity. And again, somebody who's grown businesses to multiple billion. And then he brought on Steve Hart, who owns Property Management Inc. And then we brought on Greg Majewski, who was the CEO of Jimmy John's. And we're getting these super good people for very small percentages of a company that really isn't worth anything yet.
Right. Which is kind of fascinating. I'm sure they're all very happy. Yes.
Yes. It's definitely grown quicker than what we thought.
Well, and it's grown quicker because of taking the advice, or because you listen, or what do you think that secret sauce is?
Yeah, I think the advice, I think most people, I mean, the growth comes from selling franchises, and we've sold, 400 franchises in the first 2 years, which is not super typical. And I think the 2 things that attract people, I mean, nobody's going to buy a franchise from a solar dude, right? Like nobody's going to buy a franchise from Bennett. What does Bennett know? But hey, we have Jill as our CEO, who's been doing this for 40 years. She has franchisees that have stuck with her for 40 years. Like that's the type of thing that I think people trust. So I think it's building the right team that attracted people to buy franchises. And the model, we're pitching ourselves as we're the most simplistic food franchise model. I will ship you out a cookie puck. You put it in the oven. Every cookie puck is the same time, temperature, fan speed. Ovens are programmed. Just press start. You could operate at 500 square feet with 1 employee. So it's the simplicity, I think, that also attracts a lot of, business owners, franchisees, things like that.
Did you design that model, or was that part of it?
Yes. Yeah. That was when I purchased it. I thought 1000%. The cookie industry, like how Crumble runs it, I don't think is sustainable because the labor, I mean, you go in there and you see 6 employees, and then in California, you're paying $20 an hour. It's like, nope, that's never going to work. You really need to reduce that. So with my sales hat on, before I franchised, I went and pitched this to literally hundreds of people. Hey, what do you think about this idea? And then people would say, that's great, or that's stupid. Go change that, and so I'm getting the feedback and building the company based on what I think is going to sell the best, rather than making a product and kind of figuring out how to sell it.
Is the cookie the same price in every state?
No, it's different.
No, I was just thinking, because it almost has to be. Isn't it kind of like gas?
Yep.
I was just California, gas was like $6 or $8 a gallon. I'm like, excuse me, I gotta go home.
Yep. California is the most. We sell our cookies the most in California. Yeah, you're paying $20 an hour for somebody just to chill there on their phone half the time.
All right. So is there new flavors that you're always working on?
Yes. Every week we do 4 new cookie or 4 rotational cookies. Not all of them are new, but I don't know. Every 3 or 4 months, a cookie will come back, and then every week or so, we're introducing a brand new flavor. So
How do you do?
it's
Who do
fun.
you have as an advisor for the brand new flavor category?
Um, See, I try to stay away from that because that's a lot of testing. That's a lot of, R&D taste testing. I don't want to be part of that. We have a baker here in Utah, and she does a phenomenal job.
I think it's just a fun idea. I want to go in. I mean, it's
Yes.
kind of like a Willy Wonka type thing. I see even the entire cookie thing. So
Yeah.
now what's next for you?
We've partnered with a management company. So the Greg Majewski, who's the CEO of Jimmy John's, is now our CEO, and he's been cleaning up all the mistakes I've made over the last few years. So he's been CEO since the beginning of the year, and our former CEO stayed on as president. So it's really tagging alongside that him, and he has a larger company called Craveworthy Brands. They own maybe a dozen, and really helping not just promote Dirty Dough, but Craveworthy, and all of their brands. That's all of the focus. Plus, we have another 400, or let's call it 300 stores that we've sold that we need to open. So we're opening, 1 or 2, sometimes 3 stores a week right now.
Wow. And do you, when you set this whole thing up, you have a design for exit?
Yes. Hoping. We set up a C Corp. There's a tax code, the 1202B, small business tax exemption. If you set up a C Corp before you're worth $50 million, you can raise money, you could do all of that stuff. But if you sell after 5 years, every single shareholder gets the first 10 million completely tax-free. So then I had to set up trust for my kids. So I own equity, my wife, and then all 3 of my kids. So hopefully the exit is selling to a private equity in a few years. I guess another 4 years is the timeline to get that tax break. But who knows? It changes. I feel like every other month my strategy changes.
Oh, really? How old are your kids?
7, 5, and 3. So my 3-year-old's going to preschool today. I'm taking him right after this. I'm pretty excited
So
about it.
they're not yet in the entrepreneurial mind, because just so you know, both my 21-year-olds run companies. They
Okay.
got that from mama. Yeah, my
Yes.
son is running a company while I was going to college. My daughter made her first million at 18, now has a team of 16. But
Oh,
what I
awesome.
really got value out of today's conversation, and thank you for spending the time with us, is the idea of having of advisors. I think that's a really good, it's just an interesting strategy, the way you organize that. And I appreciate hearing it, because we're looking to scale and we're a little stuck. It's like, did you just, when you first thought about who you'd like to have help you, did you just rack your brain or start making phone calls, or how did you get to the people that you finally attracted?
Well, the first guy was the guy teaching me about it. I'm like, okay,
Oh,
who better to be the advisor? And he put all sorts of stipulations. Like, I still had equity in the solar company. I still had a lot of shares. I still had a salary. And he said, you have to walk away from all of it, or else I'm
oh
not going to be your
wow.
advisor. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's only a meeting and a meeting a week. And he's like, all of it. And then he said, you have to set up vest. So he gave me these kind of checklists, and I did them all. And it was the best thing. And then I got him again. I'm asking him for referrals. Okay, John, who do you know? You know business, but you don't know franchising. And he goes, I got the guy for you. He's built the largest property management franchisor in the nation. I mean, in the world. So we brought on him. And then same thing, I'm calling employees. Hey, you used to work for Mrs. Fields. Do you know anybody? Yeah, I know this person who ran Maui Wowie Smoothies and Coffee. So I called Jill. Do you want to be an advisor? She goes, you need me to be the CEO. And I said, if that's an option, I'll take it. So we got her. Greg Majewski, the Jimmy Johns, who's our new CEO, was LinkedIn. I've messaged a million people on LinkedIn, and I jump on calls with whoever. And then same thing, referral, 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 referral. Who else do you know that could be a good fit?
You are such a rock star. Is it okay if I reach out and ask for some referrals?
Oh, absolutely. I will give you referrals all day.
I think we have to have this conversation. If you want to get fit, I don't know if you've seen my fitness product, but maybe we can sell fitness and cookies, because you know what? It's something you can do sitting at your desk, you can eat. But the crazy thing is you can't
Yes.
eat while you're spin gymming.
Yes, I like it. I like it.
I'm so very happy to have made your acquaintance, and thank you for bringing Dirty Dough to the world. You make our lives and our days a little bit sweeter, but a little bit messier, and we appreciate
Yes.
it.
Thank you.
Last thing, just your thought for the world.
A thought for the world.
Yeah.
Any thought for the world. This is where most of my thoughts are right now, is focusing on the letting go, on the analyzing thought patterns. You don't know what you're thinking before the thought arises. Thoughts just appear, but there is this perception that we need to control, and where we should carry guilt and shame for past mistakes. But when you really analyze it, and you can let go by realizing that thoughts just come and they go, and just being observer of what life is. So that's my thought for the world right now.
And I will share something with you to all my little baby entrepreneurs out there. I just put Bennett on the spot, and boom, he had it like that. Always be prepared. It makes you successful in every area of life. Bennett, thank you so very much for joining us. I so appreciate you. And to all of you who joined us today, we just kind of come over here and just thank everybody and say, till next time we meet. You guys, I appreciate you all. You've been watching and listening to the Forbes Factor. We focus on health, wealth, and happiness. And today I got a healthy dose of all three. And make sure you refer the show to somebody else. We're not franchised yet, but you know, we might be. Bye, everybody. Thank you.